Clark Lee can take Vandy's defense to the next level.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, happy Friday. It's the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Again, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Now, as I get you to the weekend, the question is for basketball, can Vandy win on the road at Oklahoma? They're red hot right now. They can do it, but can they win on the road? Also, Clark Lee has a chance to do something really special with this defense. He's built some things through the portal, got some guys coming back. Year 2 of the schemes. And again, he's going to do something special. He has a chance to. I think he will. And a lot of it will be through the pass rush, because that's one of the main things that they had to improve is getting after the quarterback. So I for one, am really excited about this defense. I think that Clark Lee has a chance to do something special. And Keanu Coate is a big reason why. You add him to Miles Capers, Corday Sidnor, some things along the defensive line. I think you're going to be in really good shape when it comes to depth and quality depth across the defensive line, from the interior guys to the ends to the edge guys. So like you have Miles Capers and Keanu Coate. There's going to be a lot. See, what really is good about this is with all this talent, you have a chance to have different combinations of guys out there. Like you can have kind of a smaller, faster lineup to where you can bring a lot of speed on the field, and guys that have a little bit of size and can run. You have a chance to do that. Like Miles Capers, 6'4", 235, kind of that bigger edge there. Keanu Coate, 6'4", 242. Both those guys coming in, they're going to have some time to develop together. They're going to have some time to kind of develop throughout spring practice. Some packages where they're both coming off the edges, where they're in the game at the same time. You're going to figure out some sort of rotation to keep those guys fresh. But like those two guys are going to be really good pass rushers in the SEC. Miles Capers, he was the only guy, so I think offenses could key on him, and he just became less effective throughout the course of the year, just because there just wasn't much else in the world of pass rushes that teams could shift their blocking schemes to him, and do things that kind of neutralized him a little bit. So with other guys in the fold, other guys developing coming into year 2, some of these younger guys that you recruit like Jalen Ruth or George O'Corey, Nick, those guys, like you have a chance to have, some of those guys maybe step up a little bit. Like George O'Corey is going to be a project, but once the light bulb comes on for him, you're talking really elite type talent. But he's just going to need some time to develop. Mason Carter, somebody who's got a bunch of length at 6'5", 235 pounds. If he's going to continue to add weight, he could be somebody that can be a depth guy out there in the pass rush. I mean, just think about if Vandy had a pass rush against Tennessee. Just think about that. If they could have sustained that throughout the course of the game, just think about how differently that game goes, right? Like you're not saying, you're probably not thinking Tennessee is. I don't know that they win that game, but I can guarantee you're not saying the same things that were said this season against about Tennessee against Ohio State. Like I don't think everybody feels as good about Tennessee because you get after Nico a little bit, you rattle him, something can happen. Ohio State showed. I mean, they're elite talent, so it's not really a good comparison. But like they showed the formula as far as what you have to do against a quarterback like Nico. You pressure him, get his eyes off of the receivers and off of the passing concepts. You get him down to the rush, and now all of a sudden he's only focused on who's in his face and who's about to take him to the ground, and he just can't function. And so that can cripple an offense. that can make an offense really start to doubt itself. And when that doubt creeps in, especially on the road, it gets kind of tough. And it was cold. The doubt crept in. They couldn't really run the ball. They kind of abandoned it. And it just kind of seemed like they just got discombobulated and they just couldn't do anything. And that's what a good pass rush will do. A good pass rush gets a quarterback spooked. It gets him to force throws that he normally wouldn't because he doesn't want to get hit over and over and over again. It causes him to second guess his protections, things like that. I mean, it is, it can be a psychological nightmare. So for Vandy, adding that pass rushing piece and maybe even adding one more in the spring transfer window would be even a good thing as well, because you can never have too many of those guys, because those edge guys are really, really good to have in bunches, because it's a pretty physical position. So but Miles Capers and Keanu Coate have a chance to be a really, really good duo, possibly elite duo, depending on how they kind of scheme it up, I guess, or depending on kind of how Clark Lee uses them. Because Keanu Coate played at Alabama. He was he just did, kind of the story of this portal class. Like, you have a little bit more star power of guy, but it's like the guys that were just on the cusp of getting early playing time, right? They just weren't quite there yet. They just need it. Those are the type of guys I think that just need the opportunity, right? And I think that's why he came to Vanderbilt, because he's going to get the opportunity now instead of just sitting behind. Like, he's the guy that probably should have gone to the smaller school to play instead of going to Alabama. And, you're going to see a lot of that in the transfer portal too. And I think people get wrapped up, and I had a conversation earlier today. Like, I think people get wrapped up in thinking, well, he didn't contribute at his last place, therefore he's going to be bad. And that's not necessarily true, because there's a lot of things that factor into playing time. And when you look at how playing time is factored in, like, maybe he got banged up during camp. Maybe he just wasn't a good fit in, I don't even know who Bama's defensive coordinator is at this point, but maybe he wasn't a good fit in that scheme. Maybe he comes to Vandy and becomes an absolute star, right? That type of thing, right? So as you look at it, you have a chance to really kind of evaluate and see just what he brings to the table. And it could be something completely special, or it could be a bust. Like, that's what you get in the portal. That's the risk you take. That's why the portal's great and simultaneously bad and risky at the same time, because you just don't know, because it's just based on opportunity. But if you look at them when they came out of high school, like, you kind of see where the talent is, and you kind of just look at how they developed, and you can make an educated guess, but you never really know, because recruiting player evaluation is not an exact science by any stretch of the imagination from the NFL on down, because teams still can't get quarterbacks right, because that's a tough position to evaluate. Teams are even worse at evaluating offensive linemen, not because they're bad at evaluating offensive linemen, but because that position just makes it so difficult to evaluate that you just can't get a bead on, who, like, the guys you think are going to be good aren't, and the guys you think are going to be terrible are all pros. Like, Jeff Saturday is a classic example. Undrafted rookie free agent, got cut, was going to be selling insurance, and then got the call. And the next thing you know, had a Hall of Fame type career with Peyton Manning and the Colts. Like, you just don't know when your break is going to happen, right? Because if you applied that same logic, the Colts should have never signed Jeff Saturday, but they did, and they benefited from it. So I'm excited to kind of see what Keanu Coate and Miles Capers has and what they bring to the table, because this is going to be a fun defense to watch. Scheme-wise, it is a really fun defense to watch, but depth-wise, they just didn't have it last year. They just didn't have the depth. And they could have probably won a few more games defensively, but they just could not hold on. The South Carolina game really was a game that it was a war of attrition. It was a war of depth. It was a war of just, okay, this is, it was just a tired team. They had nothing left in the tank, and South Carolina took full advantage of it. And not saying that anything would have been different if Vandy was a little bit more fresh, because South Carolina was red hot at the time, and they're a good football team. But I'm not thinking it's a 28-7 game. I think it's a little bit closer. But anyway, the fact of the matter is this: the depth on the defensive line is a lot better, and you're gonna see that because you look down on the interior of the defensive line. Like now you've got you got Otara, Demarion Thomas, Zaylin Wood, Glenn Seabrooks, Aaron Bryant, and N'Keal Jefferson. Like N'Keal Jefferson as a freshman, he's the sixth best defensive lineman on. Like you go down like six deep. I mean, these guys are good, man. And how you distribute them amongst the defensive line, and you could still even get more of these guys. Like you can never get enough of these defensive linemen. Like at this point, you need to get a few just body fillers and guys that can just fill a spot for depth purposes and develop. Like you can get some quality guys in the portal. Like Glenn Seabrooks is going to have an amazing sophomore year as a nose guard. Zaylin Wood's going to be a great four technique in their odd front looks and a good three technique possibly in their 4-man fronts. Demarion Thomas, Yellen Artara. Artara is 6'7", 310. Like he's what you want when you look at the defensive line bodies. So these are all interior guys. Zaylin Wood is kind of like a bounce between. I don't love that he's 6 foot. He's a little bit squatty, but that dude's good. He's a good pass rusher. He's experienced. He's got a low center of gravity. He's got a really good burst. The length is a problem, but when you play on the interior line, you just want to clog things up. And if you can become a smaller target, like the defensive linemen are getting a slightly smaller and quicker. That's kind of the deal there. So, but I'm really excited about what this team has to offer. Corday Sidnor at defensive end, Linus Zunk, Simeon Bolware, I think is going to have a big year. Jake Stanish. Like this is the position that I think you can add even more to. Like I would like to see Clark Lee go out and get another defensive end in the portal and just kind of see where you're at there, because you got some guys, you just don't have a ton of depth right there. And you would have to go undersized and you'd have to change up your defensive front looks if you wanted to, like, if you had some injuries and you had to move a guy like Coate down to 5 technique or Nick Rinaldi or one of those edge razor guys, you would have to kind of change your philosophy a little bit on how you lined up, because you couldn't put those guys at a 4 technique. They would get eaten alive. But nonetheless, the depth is 1,000 times better. It can still improve, but it's a lot better. So I'm scheme wise, I just think you have a lot more possibility when it comes to what you can do there. You have creativity, you have things you can do, you have guys that can stop. You don't have to blitz linebackers all the time. You don't have to get fancy with blitzing, second and third level guys. Like you can do first level guys, you can do edge guys, you can do different combinations, and you have guys that are talented enough to disrupt without any blitz at all. Like you have defensive linemen like Glenn Seabrooks that can win a one-on-one. You have Otara that can disrupt and really clog up a run lane and make a play and make things tough on the other team. Because if you can make them earn it, then you're going to be good. Or if you can force them, if they want to score a touchdown, they got to do it in 12 plays instead of 6. Like that. Like you have a 50% increase in the number of snaps. You force their offense to really, it kind of gets them out of a rhythm a little bit. So you have to force those kind of things if you want them to score. And a lot of teams, if you make it frustrating on them, they don't typically score in 12 plays if you frustrate them early in the drive. So they have a chance to do that. I really like this defensive line. I think it's going to make Vandy's defense really go. I think it's going to help a lot of things on the back end, because the quarterback's not going to be able to sit back there and count to 100 and count his sheeps and like make a picnic and go out and have a drink for happy hour, come back and throw a touchdown pass. Like you're going to put some real live pressure on that guy. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Nonetheless, Clark Lee, like I said, has something special up his sleeve. But speaking of special, this basketball team is just that. They are special. They're a special group. They have a chance to do something special. They're going to go on the road. Can they win on the road? I'll tell you next. But before I do that, I want to tell you that attending playoff games is an experience like no other. And that's NFL playoff games at that. The energy, the excitement, and the connection with the other fans are unmatched. I remember the thrill of seeing my favorite team clinch a playoff win live. It's a memory I'll never forget. This year, Gametime makes it even easier to create those unforgettable moments with their new feature, Gametime Picks. It filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats so you can focus on what matters, being there. I used Gametime Picks to grab tickets for an upcoming playoff game, and it couldn't have been easier. I found a super deal that gave me incredible value for amazing seats, and I could even preview the view from my spot before buying. The all-in pricing is a game changer as well, which means there's no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, knowing my tickets are backed by the Gametime guarantee gives me complete peace of mind. You can't put a price on that. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And speaking of guarantees, if you go to Joint Chiropractic, I guarantee you will feel better because Dr. Nolan and his crew will take great care of you. They'll make sure that you're in good shape. They have a personalized plan for you. There's good membership plans as well that you can get to ensure that you have a great experience. So the Joint Chiropractic is the place to go. Don't miss it out. 900 locations nationwide. So I guarantee you there's one closest to you. So go visit one. You won't regret it. I promise. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. I appreciate you guys for sticking through it. Thanks, like I said, for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, Locked On SEC is the way to go. Chris Gordy, phenomenal job there. We squad up. Go check out the squad episode. Is Clark Lee untouchable? Well, might be. We'll talk about that. I'll talk about that more in depth, probably start the week out next week. Because we did a little hot seat discussion. Nobody got fired in 2024, but there's some guys definitely on the hot seat. Is Clark Lee going to be one of those? You'll have to stick around for a later episode because I'm talking basketball. I'm talking basketball the rest of the way. So the team travels to Norman to take on the Sooners. This is a road trip, a very important road trip, because for a long time, this is your last winnable game for a long, Vandy's red hot, so every game's winnable, really. But realistically, this is the last game that you can pretty much say, okay, hey, we have a really good shot at winning. Because when you come back Tuesday, you're at Florida. Then you're home against Texas, who's a pretty sporty team. And then you have a stretch of Auburn, at Tennessee, at Kentucky, Ole Miss, at A&M, and home against Missouri. All ranked opponents. So you get the number one team in the country with Auburn. That's at least a home game. And then you're back-to-back road games at Tennessee, at Kentucky. Those are tough. It's tough to win in this league. So you have to get the wins where you can, because this league is the way it's playing out. It's going to be kind of interesting to see kind of what they do with tournament bids and everything like that. So if you want a chance to really be considered in year one, which would be an amazing thing, you have to figure out how to win games like this one coming up in Norman. So here's what to expect. Okay. Speaking of which, did you know Bob Shoop is returning as senior analyst? He was James Franklin's DC. He's coming back as an analyst. That's pretty good. He's a pretty good defensive mind. You're not really expecting him to contribute much, as far as coaching decisions. So he's really just going to be giving you scouting reports. He was really good at that. So I'm excited to see that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But I digress. Okay, basketball. It's the Lloyd Noble Center. Okay, they've played once there. They lost 85-55 in 2019. That's kind of rough, but I think that was I get the timeline for basketball mixed up. I think that was Bryce Drew, but not good regardless. But anyway, so Oklahoma is let's just say they're limping in a little bit, right? their main guy to watch, 6'7" senior Jalen Moore. He leads the team in points and rebounds. He's scoring 18.2 per game, and he's grabbing 6 boards a game. Low rebound totals is something that I think is plaguing Oklahoma, and they live and die on the three ball. So it's they've had early season success with that, but you know how streaky 3-point shooting is. So he has the doors are ranked, and this is the first time that Mark Byington has that little number beside him. And dude, Jason Edwards is a star, man. And this is going to be a special game here. And here's something you can expect. Okay, Vandy is they're ranked 189th in pace of play, or actually Oklahoma is. Vandy's 95. And they're only averaging 70.2 possessions a game. They don't shoot an insane volume. The Sooners, they are 45th in 3-point percentage. They're 70th in points and 6th in free throw shooting. So if you get them to the line, they're going to hit. All right. If they don't get rebounds, if they don't get second chance points, they're gonna be on the wrong end of the dreaded runs. Okay. And I'm not talking about after you eat a bad Mexican dinner, but I'm talking about the point run. So Vanderbilt's playing their best basketball right now, though. They're red hot, dude. They're they've got back-to-back Saturday Memorial Magic type wins over top 10 teams. They're moving the ball really well. They've got everybody kind of playing together, which I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'll continue to say it in the future. What Vandy is doing on the basketball court right now is impressive. Why? Because they just met in June as a team. Like, these guys were like, hey, I'm Devin, I'm AJ, I'm Jason, I'm Tyler. Hey guys, welcome. I'm Coach Byington. This is our philosophy. They did that in June. And here we are, 2 top 10 wins. They're ranked, which I didn't, and not to be a pessimist, not saying I expected horrible things out of this team and thought they were going to be really bad and all that stuff. I just thought they just weren't going to be ready. Like, when they came to conference play, they were going to be undersized, and they were going to be a team that just struggled because of that, because they're new. They're trying to get a chemistry, and everybody would have understood. I don't think anybody would have been upset by that, even though people like to think they are. People just don't realize how difficult that is to meet for the first time and play in the SEC. And this is kind of unprecedented, like a brand new roster, completely, a complete overhaul of everything, a complete new way of doing things. Like, that takes time. And Vandy's just kind of erased and evaporated a lot of that time, and they're way ahead of schedule. Can they keep it up? I think they can, because they figured out some things. They figured out, okay, this style of basketball is conducive to be able to, have people that just met for the first time play well together. But it's predicated on like turnovers, fast breaks, things like that. Like, that's kind of an easier style, easier identity, easier style. And when I say easier, it's like easier to integrate new guys into it. And so it's great at building team chemistry and quickly. And then as they went, like, you could see the evolution of this team. You could see that it started off as like, okay, we're going to run a lot of fast breaks. We're going to see what everybody's capable of. And then slowly but surely you started to see ball movement. And then, they're like, okay, well, let's test our abilities as a shooting team. And they just weren't very good. And they just got better at that. And then a big reason they got better at that is because they built chemistry, and they were able to pass the ball and anticipate and set themselves up with better looks at the basket. And here we are. So this game is going to be really interesting because, Oklahoma has, they're just not great. But at home in the SEC, they can slip up and get you. I'll tell you a little more next. Welcome back. We wrap up the show here in the next few minutes. Vandy travels to Oklahoma to take on the Sooners on the road. We all know how tough it is at Locked On Vandy on social media. We all know how tough it is to win on the road in this conference. It's a tough place to play. And Oklahoma's arena, the Lloyd Noble Arena, is still a pretty tough place to play. It's a good atmosphere. They really like their basketball at Oklahoma. They're really proud. Their athletic programs are just struggling right now, and I think some of it just has to do with the transition into the SEC. And so when you look at it and you evaluate it, this is the time to get Oklahoma before they get really good, because they're going to figure it out. And so Vandy, again, I reiterate, ball movement, good shots, rebounding. If they can out-rebound Oklahoma, I think that they win this game pretty comfortably, because if they can out-rebound Oklahoma on the defensive end, they prevent them from second-chance points, and they're not good, when they feel the pressure to have to score first-time points. They, like any team, if you force that issue too much, they're just going to be on the wrong side of a run. Offensively, if you can out-rebound them, you give yourself a chance at second chance points. So when you do clang that three, you can get the ball and put it back up and get some points on the board. So rebounding is going to be key in this game. Vandy's got to improve their free throw shooting, because they like to get to the rim and they're going to get fouled. So if they can take advantage of those free points, that will be very, very helpful. And continue, like I said, to continue to press the ball and just continue to be a nightmare on the defensive end of the floor. Like be that team that's just there, that's pesky, that's gonna steal your rock and go down and dunk it on the other end. Jason Edwards, I think, if he's a certified star, and if he has a big night, I think it's going to be on for Vandy. I think it's going to be a situation to where they just kind of overwhelm you. And Oklahoma is a team that can be overwhelmed. I don't think they wow you with a ton of size. I don't think Oklahoma really wows you in anything that they do. They're pretty solid. They can win at home. They're decent. They're very streaky. So if they have a good day shooting, they can certainly make this game a head scratcher. But I just don't see it, because the way Vandy plays defense, like they're gonna be all over the ball. They're gonna get in passing lanes. They're gonna force bad passes. They're gonna strip the ball, and they're gonna take it down and score. Like they're good at getting points off turnovers. They're good at forcing you into playing an uncomfortable style of basketball. And if Vandy can dictate the pace, if they can dictate the tempo of the game, then they're going to be outstanding. They're going to be a team, you're going to see and go, okay, I can see why they beat Tennessee. I can see why they beat Kentucky. Like, you're going to see that. But if they mess around and they let, Oklahoma just kind of control them half court, if they let Oklahoma have open looks, because these are SEC basketball players, they're going to hit open looks if you give them a chance to. If you give them too many chances to, they're going to hit them and they're going to get some confidence. When they get confidence, dude, it's all she wrote, or it's anything goes, really. So you gotta crush all that early. You just got to crush it all early, and you just got to say, okay, it's not going to happen. And they've got to come out and start. Like the thing that plagued them against Missouri is they got off down in a 14-2 run. Like, Missouri came out red hot, and they could just never really gain it back. And so Vandy's got to do the same thing. Vandy's now got to be that team, and they have the capability with their playing style. They have the capability to be that team. They can say, we're going to, bludgeon you to death, right? They can really kind of put pressure on you. So it's a situation now where Vandy is now the aggressors versus when they were more of a reactor. Like, they early in the conference slate, they were reacting. They're more talented than a lot of the teams they played in the non-conference slate, but in the conference slate, they were a team that reacted and oftentimes just couldn't find the chemistry to kind of pull through. But lately they've just been they've had a good formula. They've had Jason Edwards, that helps too. So, but anyway, that's all we got. That's all we got for you coming into the weekend. We hope you have a great weekend. If you're traveling to Oklahoma to see the game. Have safe travels to Norman, Oklahoma. But until then, we'll see you back here next time on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Anchor down. Peace out. Behave yourselves.